I think the first thing I would like to discuss is, with your background and with your experience, what was it about ILEC and the method and the model that really stood out to you and made you want to join?
Right. So for me, I've had a number of different leadership roles over the course of my career, right? So I ended up spending 26 years with the same organization, but at the same time, it was constantly changing and it was trying to, remain relevant at the same time, satisfy client needs and build value with clients. So, but I found that when I went back and reflected on my career, what really excited me the most was having the ability to create, scale, go to market, and execute, right? And so as I took a look at going into business for myself, building my practice completely focused on professional development, I looked at how do I maximize the return on my wealth of experience and knowledge? And I found ILEC. I met John Mattone. We started talking. And for me, his philosophies, his visions as the world's number one executive coach, right? There was alignment. He developed these tools, this vision as co-founder of ILEC, and that allowed me to really scale, accelerate my ramp up, and at the same time, really broaden my reach almost immediately through the ILEC network and through a lot of the blocking and tackling that have been put in place.
Yeah, I'm interested. What was it about John's vision or about his method that really stood out to you and made you realize that this is a viable thing that I could really use to make a difference?
Absolutely. So every journey begins with that first step, right? And the philosophy around intelligent leadership comes back to that self-awareness. So a leader realizing that there's more potential to reach, right? There's this leader within, they know that they're capable of more, capable of better, but figuring out how do they unlock that? And at the same time, who can they work with to get them to that point? Let's face it, it can be lonely at the top or it can be a long way to the top. But if you take that passion that you have as a leader and hone in on that, heighten that self-awareness to understand the strengths, the tools that you have, as well as maybe some areas of opportunity or areas to develop, areas to avoid altogether. That's the first starting point. Then understanding what that looks like to your audience, to those that you're responsible for managing, so that you can understand not only what their strengths are, but those areas where they can help you with that feedback, with that vulnerability, and with that openness with that team. You're building that connection, but at the same time, collectively, you're able to accomplish more than ever imagined before.
Yeah, I'm interested in your background as well, obviously, right? The wealth of experience that you mentioned. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how that positions you to be a really effective coach.
Sure. So when I began, we were purely a holding company. There were about 45 dealerships all over the country, right? And it was very much an entrepreneurial approach to business, to professional services. That's what attracted me because I had worked for large organizations prior to that. But that entrepreneurial approach and the ability to really treat it as my own business excited me. Over the course of the next 3 decades, right, 26 years, we transformed from that holding company to a true operating company. And then about 15 years ago, we were acquired and managed through that merger and that integration of the two companies, which I was a leader of. So in doing that, I realized that, in professional services, you've got to be listening. You've got to be learning about your client and what's important to them, and then leaning into what type of service you can provide to provide value and impact for their clients, right? So the big part of my success revolved around understanding the ability to connect with that client, that customer, but at the same time, then building a team, building a solution around that need, and then executing on that. And that really came back to empowering that team and providing them with a platform to collaborate, and then giving them the opportunity to thrive or at least learn along the way without fear of failure, right? So let's face it, over the last couple of years, everybody's had to get into digital transformation, but I've been leading successful journeys in that space for the better part of almost 30 years. So that change management that was required with the onset of the pandemic really is no different than the change management that we were building as a global company for our clients, and driving that mindset, helping to shift the mindset of those people. And it all began with intelligent leadership at the highest levels in the organization.
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit there, but what are some of the common issues that you find when you're coaching leaders? What are some of the things that people are really struggling with today?
Well, right now it's a battle for talent. And everywhere you go, you can see that the statistics point back to the pandemic arrived. All of a sudden, everything was put on hold, right? You saw this mass exodus of talent. People either voluntarily or involuntarily were lost, right? Today, that afforded people the opportunity to really think about what it is that they want to do, how they value their time, understanding that the future is not a given, right? You need to chart your course that you want to take in that future. What is that vision or that mission that you're working toward, right? You can't simply recruit folks to build or sell or implement widgets any longer and expect success. Executives and emerging leaders have got to assess their leadership strategy. You can't simply promote somebody into a position of leadership and hope that they're going to be successful just because they were successful in their last role, right? That model's not sustainable, and frankly, it leads to burnout and turnover in the ranks. So, workers are looking for more, whether it's their career, whether it's within the community, within their personal lives. They're looking for balance and they're looking for fulfillment. They're looking for a return on the investment of their time. We all only have so much time, right? So, intelligent leaders are able to shift mindsets with those that they're responsible for managing from a position of authenticity. And that authenticity then provides, say, a more fulfilling workplace that at the same time can achieve those business results, but those are business results that are significant. And I'm not talking about big results. I'm talking they mean something. I think a good example of this right now is what just happened in Russia, right? So it's, war is a touchy subject, and I'm not bringing politics into this, but, the US companies immediately realized that, they needed to protect their people in Russia, but more importantly, they wanted to support Ukraine, and they wanted to demonstrate that their values revolved around, democracy and what Ukraine stands for, right? So at the risk of bottom line, they pulled people out. They pulled their employees out. They shut down operations and continued to pay those employees. Now, by doing this, they not only showed their support for Ukraine, but they demonstrated to their employees, to their customers, what their values, where they stood from a position of integrity. The results of that, you can't measure, but I can tell you that you saw there were several companies that followed suit because they realized that was the right thing to do, and they did it. So that really illustrates the power of conviction and the power of intelligent leadership, well thought, mindful leadership, and what that does for the teams that we're responsible for managing.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about that conviction, right, and that thoughtful leadership. I think you also mentioned turnover, right, in the post-COVID era. A lot of young leaders being kind of thrust into leadership positions that maybe they're not prepared for, right? So maybe you have a lot of leaders who don't necessarily have that kind of conviction or even that experience to really lead in an informed way. How do you, as a coach, sort of combat that with some of the people that you're coaching?
Well, it's, as I mentioned earlier, everybody begins with that self-awareness because it's an inside-out approach. I really want my clients, I want those emerging leaders, even established executives, to understand the tool set, the toolkit that they're working with, right? So once we've established that, then we can chart out an action plan around what it is that they want to accomplish. Is it that they're trying, you simply put a number on a board and you coach everybody to a number, you divvy that up by 12 or however big your team is. That's not effective leadership. That's not intelligent, right? So you want to be able to build something that, what is the widget that you're representing? What is the significance of that for the client and the customer's customer, right? But once we understand how to communicate that effectively, how to build a compelling vision for our teams, and not only what it is that we're responsible for doing, but why we're doing it, now you've tapped into something. Now people feel that there's an understanding of what everybody's marching toward together. And at the same time, with that openness and with that type of relationship with the teams, you can then turn and start to solicit their feedback, have them building the vision, contributing to the vision as well. And together, everybody feels this psychologically safe space to get creative in. And let's face it, with creativity, you never know what you're going to unleash. But first they have to feel comfortable, and they need to feel that they're in a position where they can offer that up without judgment or without being the risk of failure and potentially moving on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a couple of things that you also talked about, we're just the state of the world right now, right? And so I'd love to know, why is now the right time for somebody to become an ILEC coach?
Well, without getting into the numbers, I mean, when you look at just the demographics and the talent that's out there, you're seeing a reduced number, not just as a result of the pandemic, but the baby boomers are moving on to, retirement. You have others that are focusing, what is it that they want to do? It's not necessarily just chasing that number. So, with my economics background, the first thing is you've got a reduced number of talent that you're looking to attract to your organization, right? So that's critical. But I think from the understanding of securing a professional for a support mechanism for their thought leadership, for their experience, now you can accelerate your own growth, your own personal career path, with the input and the support of somebody who's been there, somebody who's been successful in this space, not necessarily inside your industry, but successful in leading other people, because that is a gift. It's a gift that most have innately, but it needs to be unlocked. It needs to be ignited, and it needs to really be authentic for them to I'll say, establish that connection with their team.
Yeah. Now that you've been coaching for a while, right? I'd love to know what a typical day looks like for you, just running your business.
I mentioned before, when I first graduated from Illinois, I went to work for a financial services firm, and I called on banks, savings and loans, and credit unions. Every day was pretty predictable, right? Inside of executive coaching, no two clients are alike, and therefore no 2 days are alike. I offer one-on-one coaching as well as workshops, keynotes, retreats. Every engagement really comes back to my client and understanding, identifying what type of support they're looking for. Every one of my clients understands there's an opportunity for improvement. There's room to grow. And at the same time, we begin that rapport, developing that relationship. What I love most about my role now as an executive coach is the ability to continue building that relationship of bonding with that client, and then building that plan together and celebrating small wins along the way. Not unlike I used to manage my team and develop my team and the future leaders inside my company, right? My previous company. And so, for me, the fact is that everybody's looking to achieve something different. Everybody's looking to go about business in a more profound and a more significant way. Just trying to figure out how to do that. My approach in working with so many different global organizations, so many different industries, is I can bring some experience, some credibility, some examples of what they might do or what's worked or what hasn't worked in that coaching, but helping to move them toward the initiative that they want to accomplish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. You talked a little bit about your history in there. What are some of the lessons that you learned about leadership throughout your professional career that you're able to now implement and use as an asset as a coach?
Well, I used to say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So as I would move from team to team, I had different responsibilities throughout the course of my career. I'd come into every team, every organization, understanding that collectively they knew more than I did. And I was okay saying that. my responsibility was to lead that team and get them to perform at their highest level. But I never took an approach of, I know more than you do, because every single person out there, every single employee, no matter what their role, their title, their experience is, brings with them a perspective, a paradigm, right? And we can all learn from that paradigm. So it's important to give them the opportunity to speak, feel comfortable in speaking, but then actively listening, because from that, then we all learn. I love the fact that if every different client may be different, but every single day I'm learning something new. And with that, I'm just a little more valuable to my client and my next client and so on. So that's what gets me excited, gets me jumping up and running out the door every day.
Yeah. And how does ILEC support you in running your business?
Well, it's, for one, I went through master certification with John Mattone himself as an early adopter. I think I was the 10th business owner to sign on. So, I have John's cell phone number. I have the ability to reach out to any one of the team that is ILEC on a regular basis. So I mentioned the methodologies and the tools that we have. At the same time, the network of other coaches. While I gave serious consideration just doing this, going out and hanging a shingle and doing it on my own, I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy the ability to brainstorm with others from different backgrounds, but similar perspectives and similar passions, right? So for me, I have that network of the coaches. I have my business development team. I actually serve on the advisory council of the franchise. So we're constantly getting together and talking about new ideas, new strategies for going to market, areas of focus. I go to business development as I'm charting a course for my clients. I can go back, I can whiteboard with, our trainers, with our business development team about how to spread my message throughout. So it's been very helpful as I've become more entrenched and more ingrained in social media and Facebook for business and Google My Business and so on and so forth, right? So all the support that I need, but the ability to kind of stay within the guardrails of understanding maybe what's worked and what hasn't worked for other business owners.
And what kind of goals do you have for your business in the next, I guess in the short term and the long term?
Well, I came into this with I was at a crossroad in my career. What did I want to do? My kids are both almost out of college. And I'm looking at, so what does that next phase look like? And as I really, put pen to paper and thought about what it is I want to accomplish, I couldn't imagine, completely retiring. I truly enjoy business and I love people, and the ability to take my experience and give that back to the community, to the next generation to come. For me, that's exciting. And, I have my return on investment goals that I'm working toward and I'm progressing toward. I'm stretching myself into new spaces. I mentioned, managing these global relationships, and now I'm reconnecting with the community on a local level, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Young Executives Program, with the Young Entrepreneurs Program. So new things that are opening my eyes to the opportunity and to the potential that's out there. But honestly, I see this as something that I could continue to do for, 10, 20 years, depending on how much I want to apply myself. The model is built to work virtually. I prefer face-to-face. I'm very excited for more face-to-face interaction after the last 2 years we've all been through. But at the same time, it's something that invigorates me. And as I mentioned, I continue learning. So I don't see an end game or a finish line, just a matter of how much scale and how much I want to continue to put into to expanding my reach.
That's great. And I think the last thing is, if I was considering becoming an ILEC coach, but I was on the fence and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, what would you say to me?
Well, that's an excellent question, actually. So we all have the potential to be great leaders. We're constantly modeling, whether we know it or not. We're modeling for those around us. But if you have interest in fueling that fire, reach out to me at my website's dennispierce.intelligentleadershipec.com. Schedule some time with me. I'd be happy to answer all your questions. So whether it's fueling that passion to lead, whether it's just becoming a better leader, if you have that mindset of servitude, If you hunger to make an impact and elevate the game of all those around you, then you should answer that. You should look into it deeper. I'm not saying that means that you should become an executive coach, but I'm happy to help you. Reach out and let's figure out if there's something that, there's a leader within that you want to unlock, and let's see what we can't do together.
A lot. I have one more question on top of that. This doesn't necessarily have to pertain to your professional experience. This could even be something from childhood if you want. But I'd love to know if there was a point in your life where you really started to understand, or you really learned what leadership was, whether you saw it in somebody else, like a coach or a parent, or you saw it at work, whatever it was.
Right. So I grew up in a spiritual family, and 12 years of parochial school, which I'm very thankful for. There was some good, there was some bad, right? But at the same time, I realized that I have responsibility. These talents were given to me, right? And that I have a responsibility, I have an obligation to try to maximize the return, not on my time, but I need to make the world a better place, as cliche as that sounds. And so I've been successful throughout my career. And for that, I feel blessed and I'm very thankful, right? But for me, as I look at my children, as I said, they're graduating from college, I feel that I have an obligation as a parent, as a leader in my community, to give back. And so that was demonstrated to me from the earliest age, from my father and my mother. I grew up in the neighborhood that my parents grew up in, so I had all four grandparents there, but I was surrounded by these mentors, and it taught me that is my responsibility as an individual, as a human being. So for me, that's really what fueled me at an early age. And I realized every day that I have, I should try to do something. I should try to be better on my own, and I should try to be better for those around me.
So Dennis, I'm interested, what kind of impact do you want to have as an ILEC coach?
Well, it's an excellent question, actually. And what drew me to executive coaching is really the ripple effect, because just like throwing a stone into the middle of a pond, you have no idea just how far that ripple effect may be felt, right? It's almost the butterfly effect. So I think a perfect example of that right now is, March Madness is going on. Now, granted, I graduated from Illinois, so I'm not real high on the tournament this year. My bracket's already broken. But I think what the tournament represents every year is that vision, that potential, that opportunity for amazing success. And it comes back to the coach and the system that they've put in place. They begin the tournament. There's hundreds of teams all over the country, right? But 64 teams come in. This coach is building a vision to those players, to his team, that everybody's the same here. Everybody puts their pants on the same way, the shorts on the same way, and we can do this. We got this. But throughout, he builds this vision and he continues to reinforce that vision. He's fueling that for his players, about themselves, about the others on the team, about the fans, about their families. So he's just fueling that drive to get them to perform at their highest level. He's not focusing on the basket that they just missed. He's focusing on the end game and achieving that next basket and achieving that win to move on in the tournament. They course correct throughout the game as needed, throughout the tournament as needed, but there's no fear on the part of the players. The players don't talk about what they would have done differently until the game is over, and then they course correct appropriately for the next game. But, Coach K, everybody loves Coach K at Duke. That's an authentic character. He always has been. He's consistent. You know what you get. And it's, character is defined by what you do when others aren't looking, right? That's Coach K. So you'll see all sorts of memes online. You'll see all sorts of notes that he's written, keynotes that he's delivered, but that speaks to the power of effective and intelligent leadership, right? ILEC likes to focus on the 4 A's. The 4 A's being, first, that altruism. So a coach, a leader, an effective manager, executive is capable of selflessness and demonstrating selflessness. It's not about them and their achievements. It's about the collective success of the organization, of the team, right? Once you're able to nurture that type of altruism, now you build that connection, that affiliation among your team. Now, not only are you connecting with those on the team, but you're attracting others to your team. That also is something that's contagious to the client, to the customer level, right? So the customers that your team is supporting are also noticing this culture that you're nurturing. And with that comes achievement. The achievement of small wins followed by bigger wins, followed by success, right? And nothing breeds success like success. So once you've achieved that, those results, there's that abundance, because it is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you've built this type of a workspace and this kind of a platform, this environment that others want to be a part of, then the other team members can't wait to be the next one to ring the bell, the next one to come in with the next great idea, right? So that's the beauty of executive coaching for me, is the immeasurable effect that I might have on that leader and their team and their customers. So that's what really fuels me every day, and gets me excited about working with a wide variety of different clients.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying about the tournament is the same thing that you say about the leaders and the businesses you work with, in that the teams that win are the ones that are greater than the sum of their parts.
Exactly right.